Welcome back to Holovids. Today we're going to be going over a couple of theories for the second season of the Book of Boba Fett 2. Now, it's not confirmed, but I'm just making a theory. I definitely think there's going to be a second season for the Book of Boba Fett. They kind of hinted at it in the end credit scene of the last episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and I definitely think that before we got, there was a lot of unfinished and unanswered questions. So I think having a second season would allow us to get a lot of these things answered and to have a better conclusion to Boba's story. And without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to go over the first theory. Now, of course, we already know that Cobb Vanth is going to probably survive, and we saw him at the end in the back tank being healed up. But we did see the modder is getting his scalpel, and he was about to prepare for surgery. So I think what we're going to be seeing is Cobb Vanth get a new cybernetic or some sort of new arm. Now, I think realistically, Cobb Vanth's going to be getting a new cybernetic arm. Now, this could lead to a lot of different things. The reason I think he's going to be getting an arm, though, is because we did see him get shot in the shoulder by Cad Bane. The reason he would need an entirely different arm is because it was such a lethal shot that he was considered dead by the people of Freetown, and he required an immediate medical and back to assistance, or otherwise he would have been dead. And if it was that lethal of a shot, it makes sense for him to have to require a new arm, if not more. He could, potentially receive even more cybernetics and become more machine than man, but that's pushing it. So I think we're going to definitely see at least a cybernetic arm. Now, of course, what this could lead to is a lot of maybe problems for him at first. I think Cobb's going to have to learn how to, he's going to have to learn his basic motor skills again. He's going to have to try and learn how to properly use it, how to use his blaster again. And I think we could see maybe a couple episodes or maybe even an arc throughout a second season of Boba Fett's new season if he gets one. We could see maybe him struggling with it and maybe coming into some close call, moments where he can't get his gun to work, where he can't use his arm right, and he almost loses his life. And we could see that struggle, and we could also see maybe Cobb decides to talk to the other mods who have cybernetic enhancements, and he could maybe ask them questions and try and use them to help him. How does he gonna live with this new enhancement? How does he function properly? And they could show him like what you have to get used to and what do you have to do and what do you have to learn. So we could definitely see a lot of things happening with him and a new cybernetic arm. Now to move into the next theory, I think we'll end up seeing maybe Cobb and Boba clashing heads. They might butt heads on a couple of situations or a couple of different topics. And the reason I say this is because Boba Fett and Cobb are now kind of the only really leadership figures that are left on Tatooine. Everyone else kind of got killed. The mayor, the Pike leaders, the other Tatooine Mos Espa, leaders also got killed off by Fennec. And so there's really no one else that can lead Tatooine except for Boba and Cobb Vanth. And of course, while they were both fighting for the same side, they're both very different people. Cobb is more of a honorable marshal. He's kind of got that sheriff type cowboyish, honor. Whereas Boba, of course, Boba's not the same Boba as he was once before. He's more honorable now, but he's still a crime lord. He's still a daimyo of Tatooine. He's still going to try and run things as some sort of crime lord. I'm not saying he's going to start ruling with fear, but he's definitely going to try and keep some of his same, crime boss motives and sort of attitudes towards things. So we could see potentially Boba and Cobb Vanth get into a clash when it comes to dealing with someone. I'm sure there's still going to be crime on Tatooine, and Boba might decide feed him to the Rancor, or maybe kill him, or have some sort of punishment that would make an example out of him. Whereas Cobb Vanth might say, no, you have an entire palace with its own prison chambers. Put him in there, and we'll give him maybe a reasonable sentence. We'll try and do this honorably. And Boba might decide like, no, that's not how we rule things, and it could expand into completely different things. It could expand it how they make money. Boba collects tribute from the people of Mos Espa, and Cobb might decide that's corrupt. That's wrong. And we could see this whole entire situation sort of erupt, and it could get so bad to the point that they feel threatened by one another, and it could lead to a potential civil war on Tatooine. We could see the people of Freetown and Boba's mercs, get into a fight. They could get into a bit of trouble. It could lead to something else. So, I don't want to get into too much depth because there's a lot of stuff that could be covered in a potential civil war on Tatooine if it was between Cobb Vanth and Boba, and of course what it would mean for Tatooine. But to sum it up, it could lead to a lot of problems. And now for the final theory that I'm thinking of what could happen for a potential second season is, of course, who the new enemy is going to be for Boba. Now, we did see the Pikes. The Pikes showed up. They pretty much thrashed the entire city. But of course, there has to be another enemy. There has to be a new foe for Boba to face. And I think this one is going to be Crimson Dawn. Now, the reason I think it's Crimson Dawn is because, while the Pikes showed up, they kind of, the Pikes obviously came in numbers and tried taking off the town. But to me, the Pikes aren't the type of people, they're not the type of syndicate to wage open warfare. Not only that, the Hutts in the beginning decided to flee Tatooine. They didn't want anything to do with with Tatooine or Mos Espa anymore after they figured out that someone else was coming. Now, while the Pikes are very powerful, the Pike syndicate's wealthy. They have plenty of resources. The Pikes aren't exactly someone I would assume the Hutts would fear. The Hutts might have to have a fight against the Pikes, but they're not going to be. They're not going to run and tuck their tails between their legs and leave Tatooine to the Pikes. The only people that could really make the Hutts fearful would be someone like Crimson Dawn, someone even more powerful, someone that's got even more resources. And that's why I think Crimson Dawn is the real menace behind the Pike attack on Mos Espa. And, seeing as like the Pikes showed up in all their numbers, I'm thinking that Mos Espa was promised to the Pikes and was told, like, the Crimson Dawn said, oh, you can have Mos Espa if you successfully take it. But seeing as how the Pikes were, unfortunate, they were unfortunately beaten, it would leave Crimson Dawn to try and have a new strategy, take it a different way. And I think that they decided to finally deal with it themselves. And so I think that they'd end up showing up. They'd warn Boba, leave now or you're going to regret your decision. Like, leave now and we'll make sure the people of Mos Espa are safe. But if you decide to say no, if you decide to turn down our proposal, you are going to regret it. And this is where Boba, being the honorable daimyo he is, would say, no, these are my people. I'm not going to leave Tatooine to some new syndicate. And of course, this is where Crimson Dawn would decide, like, you made your choice, and they'd show up in full force and powers, and they'd probably end up creating even more destruction than they'd create more destruction than the Pike Syndicate would. Which is why I think, it would be an even more menacing enemy for Boba to deal with. And I don't want to get into too much detail about what would happen if it was Crimson Dawn, because I feel like there'd be so much more I could cover in another video. There's so much I could go. There's so many more things I could go into depth and in detail with if it was Crimson Dawn. So I'm going to end up saving this type of theory for a whole another video. If you want to see other videos, though, make sure you leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to make a video on anything else you guys suggest. But these are just a couple of the theories I thought about making. A couple of theories I think that we could see for a potential Book of Boba Fett Season 2. If you guys have any other theories, make sure you leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to read them. I read everyone's comments, and I try to reply to everyone I can. But again, thank you guys for watching so much. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment. And without further ado, I'll see you guys later, and may the Force be with you.